Hello, this is Azarelius and we're going to go through some news before we hit the main video for today. So, what has happened? A lot of things! I mean, a lot of things! Putin won the election and Trump is actually planning going to congratulate him on his victory. Well, it's, you know, sort of more personal, it seems, when Putin sat there in his cathedral with his bishops and congratulated Trump. I mean, it's damn well respectful, but I think it's a very nice thing that Trump would like to go to Russia and, you know, try and make some planning for the new administration of Russia. And this is not a gesture perhaps directly towards Putin like CNN would like you to believe. I mean, they're so crazy they would eventually start saying Putin has ties to Russia. I mean, they're literally crazy on a witch hunt, trying to really just burn down anything and anyone that has any connection whatsoever to Russia. It's insane. But I thought this news was just kind of funny and would get under some people's skins. But something really disturbing has happened, and of course this is no surprise to me. I was like, well, having cars that would be self-driven would be a bad idea. It's like in the Christmas thing in Disney, where Goofy is not driving but sitting and eating, and then Mickey Mouse asks, hey, who's driving? Or was it Donald Duck? I don't remember now. And well, then Goofy says, oh, well, it's me driving. And then they figure out, oh, wait, no one is driving. So well, one Uber driver, or well, one Uber self-driving vehicle killed a woman. She got injured, but she died later of her injuries, and I think this was in Arizona, America. Of course, Uber decided to cancel all self-driven vehicles, and I think actually Trump did not sign the that they should continue or something like that, but I guess that's not really relevant as they are still in full operational. I mean, I watched a video today of a guy who drives Uber and makes YouTube videos out of it. I don't remember what it was, like Jake driving car or something like that. I thought it was interesting. It was someone getting a free ride. It had 6 million views on YouTube. Very interesting stuff, actually. But regardless, I just think it's dangerous when you're gonna enter this technocratic system where you're gonna have self-driving cars. I mean, these cars could be hijacked, hacked, and make political figures or anyone who's a dissident just commit suicide by driving off a cliff without these people being able to control themselves. It would be like one of these Knight Rider series where they would sit there, have some actor in a car, and all of a sudden she can't stop the car and she's gonna scream and be terrified, and of course Knight Rider is gonna come. You know, the one with David Hasselhoff. I might be saying the wrong name, but I think it was Knight Rider, where David Hasselhoff had this intelligent car that could speak and do all of these amazing things. But in any case, I don't think the self-driven car would be as intelligent and helpful as him, but rather cold-hearted and, well, not as cooperative. Eventually, as you probably have figured out, government will intervene, as they like to do in everything. Because we don't live under capitalism, we live under socialism. I mean, the sense that we live under capitalism is false, because our entire economic structure forbids that, as we have central banks, and these banks, well, they don't really have a currency. We don't really gain money. We just produce money from the central bank, and that means we have a false capitalism. And we are being controlled by these huge socialist constructs that tries to build this world government, but hopefully with people like Trump and Putin, which are being hated, not because they're racists, not because they're people who's trying to create some fascist dictatorship and control the world like the globalists are. They are in fact just against the establishment and want to rule over their own federations. It's not like they're being sovereign leader of their sovereign state, but they're federations controlling many states, which is also a very dangerous thing. Because if the Soviets would have continuously been expanding rather than having the understanding with the globalists that, hey, let's stop expand because, well, all of our financiers doesn't like us expanding because we have to centralize us across the entirety of the globe, then it's gonna become a bit more difficult for them. But in any case, I just think it's very bitter news to hear that technology, which should be really a helpful tool for us humans, can have this bitter and poisonous flaw and be dangerous rather than helpful. Naturally, this was an accident, and who's going to take the blame, I don't know, and most likely no one. Maybe her beloved and close ones will get some reimbursement because of her death, but I doubt anyone will be brought into justice or, you know, face trial. But I bet these companies, etc., or the manufacturers, the programmers of this vehicle, will have to compensate in one way or the other. I mean, they are surely to be insured with having self-driven vehicles, don't you think? I mean, of course they have a backup plan if everything goes to hell. And this also means they most likely gonna have to take back these types of vehicles or software and update it because, well, I don't know the circumstances of the crash, of course, of how exactly it happened, whether it was reckless or whether it was perhaps she that did not really look and just went out on the street and the car sensors did not pick her up in enough time. I don't know exactly what happened during the crash, but in itself it should be a big warning what is to come. So, well, if you see a car without a driver, please keep in mind that the vehicle might not see you until it's too late. So rather stop and watch before you cross the street. That's basically what I wanted to say, but I tend sometimes to get a little bit overboard. But hey, it's me. And another news I wanted to pop before we go into the main subject, which I'm probably gonna keep short to make the video a bit shorter, is that Lauren Southern and some other cute reporter from America, but Lauren Southern is from Canada, as we know, as I have highlighted her earlier on the channel. But the other one is, I think she's pro-libertarian something. You know, I don't think she's extremist in any sort of way. She had an interview with people like Tommy Robinson in the past, which, well, he's being seen as a racist, but he's not, blah, 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 you know, all that boring stuff. Both of these girls were banned from the UK. I think in itself, this sort of thing deserves a video in itself, so I'm gonna add that to my list of videos. But the very interesting thing with Lauren Southern here is that she actually did not just get banned, she got in for questioning under the Terrorism Act.
Thank you very much for your presence here. We'll speak English if everybody agrees with it. It's my pleasure to announce here the presence of Lauren Southern, and the subject of this meeting here is what happened to her in the last few days in the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Gerald. My country used to be a bastion of free speech, and it is no longer. The free speech was curtailed. The hate crime, hate speech, which was brought in under Tony Blair's Socialist government, has been continued. And has actually got worse under Theresa May when she was Home Secretary, and of course the woman is now the Prime Minister of Britain. Lauren had free movement across Europe. She went to Flanders, Belgium, she travelled through France, and then she was stopped by Kent police at Calais and prevented coming into our country under the Terrorism Act. She's been detained by Kent police. Now, Kent is in the southeast of England, it's in my constituency. I live in Kent, I brought my children up in Kent, and over the past few years, under the so-called Tories' austerity, 800 police officers were taken off the ranks and made redundant. And so we're wasting police resources, Kent police resources, on holding back a girl who is Canadian, who's actually a Commonwealth citizen, and in her passport it actually says the Queen requests that she has free and unimpeded travel. Yet Kent police will hold her back, but they've allowed 500 jihadis to slip in. I'm not saying it's Kent police's fault, I'm not saying that it's the border forces' fault, because they've also had cutbacks. But when you've allowed 500 jihadis to slip back into your country, Frontex, the EU's border agency, has said that there's 1,000 jihadi brides heading back our way, and when I requested 2 weeks ago to have this urgently on the agenda, and we were discussing terrorism and the funding of jihadi terrorism, this place refused to do it. And then we've also got in our country around about 30,000 known extremists, jihadi extremists, but we just don't have the resources to monitor. It takes around about 30 to 40 officers to follow one person around the clock. We don't have that type of resources. But, you know, it's an easy grab to stop somebody like Lauren at the border and prevent her from coming into my country. There's a guy called Majid Nawaz that my British colleagues will probably know. He's a former Muslim, and he is also a fellow of the Quillim Foundation, and he's a journalist on LBC. And he said a couple of days ago, this may be the first time that UK border control have enforced medieval Islamic blasphemy law and medieval Islamic homophobia in one clean sweep. And he was talking about Lauren. So to detain her and other people that we stopped coming into my country over the weekend is absolutely disgraceful. You know, and I speak as somebody that has no faith, but I absolutely uphold the right of Christians, Jews, Sikhs, Hindus to go about your business, your religion, unimpeded, providing that you do it peacefully. And in our Christian country, you will live according to our laws and our democracy and our freedoms, not Sharia law. So I think we've really got our priorities very, very wrong in my country, and I'm really ashamed to say, as we leave the European Union, this young lady is actually allowed to go around the different countries, the 27 states of the European Union, and my country, which is seeking to be outward, and an outward trading nation, and an open trading nation, we close our border to a Canadian citizen, and I condemn that. Anyway, I could say a lot more on this, and I think we probably will after Lauren's spoken, but really this conference is about her. And I'd like to hand the floor over to you, Lauren.
So thank you so much for having me here today, especially to Janice for inviting me out. It's a rather bizarre situation finding yourself locked out on the other side of a border alone, thinking that the entire state is against you, but to be called up by some people that still represent freedom of speech and the values that I thought the UK was founded on, to be called up by you and invited here to speak freely is an absolute pleasure, and it's good to know there are some good people who still hold those values in the United Kingdom, and it's not all lost. But to get into what happened to me, on Sunday night I got on a bus from Belgium to head towards Calais to go over to Dover and into the UK. And I was stopped by the UK border police, who asked me to take my bags off of that bus and bring them in. And they began to search my bags and put me in a detention center. I figured that the situation might be comparable to the situation with American journalist Brittany Pettibone and activist Martin Zellner from Austria, where they were detained and actually put in a prison for 3 days due to their political opinions. However, a little bit into my detention, they handed me over to the UK Kent police, and an officer came into the room and handed me this information leaflet, which says, Schedule 7 Terrorism Act. And they told me that I am now being detained under the Schedule 7 Terrorism Act. Here's what I need to know. I do not have effectively any rights, at least for the first hour. I do not even have the right to remain silent. I was brought into a small questioning room, one that you might see in the movies with the little tape recorder on the table, and they began to question me on all manner of things, beginning with, how would I describe myself politically? What is a nationalist? They moved on to, are you religious? How religious are you? Christian? How far Christian are you? Yes, I am Christian. I am not a Christian extremist of any sort. And it got very strange when they moved on to the question after that, where they said, how do you feel about people running trucks into individuals to kill them, specifically Muslims? To which I nearly laughed, not because I think that's a funny matter at all, but to think that myself, a young Christian woman from Canada, who has never been part of any terrorist organization, I've never endorsed any terrorist organization, I have no criminal record whatsoever, I'm sitting in a room with the Kent police being asked how I feel about running over Muslims with trucks. It was just absolutely absurd. Now, after that, they asked me how I felt about right-wing terrorism, to which I once again told them, you can watch any of my social media, you can look at any of my videos online, not once have I endorsed terrorism. I think it is a horrific, evil thing, no matter who it comes from. The right, the left, Muslims, Christians, does not matter. And there was no point which they told me why I was detained under Schedule 7. Whether they suspected me of terrorism, none of it. There was no reason given. After 6 hours of being held, they ended the investigation. And I will mention that the Kent police are perfectly lovely people. I assume that these orders came from above to ask me these questions and to detain me under Schedule 7, the Terrorism Act. After being detained for 6 hours, they gave me a form, and it says here, you have asked for leave to enter the United Kingdom as a visitor for up to 5 days. However, by your own admission, on the 24th of February 2018, you were involved in the distribution of racist material in Luton. I believe that your actions whilst in the United Kingdom present a threat to the fundamental interests of society and to the public policy of the United Kingdom. The event that they are referring to is an event that I never at any point said or admitted to being racist material. It was a social experiment I was doing with a few people in Luton, referring to a Vice article claiming Jesus Christ may have been a gay man. We decided to do a spin-off and see how the public would react to other religions being called gay or LGBT religions. So we came out with signs, pretended to be left-wing presenters, and said, Allah is a gay god. Allah is a god for gays and homosexuals as well. To which the police confiscated our material. I never violated any laws. I cooperated with them. And yet, I guess I got the end of my social experiment. I got the result. Vice is perfectly allowed to state Jesus Christ may be gay. If you say Allah may be gay, you get detained under Schedule 7 Terrorism Act and banned from the country for racism. What in that statement has to do with race, I cannot tell you. It seems more like the UK is bringing back ancient blasphemy laws. That's what this seems like. The great shame here, of course, as unfortunate as it is that my friends were put in prison, effectively, for 3 days, that I was detained and banned from a country, as great shame as that is, the greater shame here is that I worry that the United Kingdom, which does face problems from extremism, does genuinely face problems from radical Islam and Islamic terrorism, they are getting to a point where people will no longer be able to question the problems introduced here. I am a Canadian citizen, a part of the Commonwealth. I speak the language. I love the culture. I love the UK in general. I came in legally. I intended to stay for the amount of time that I said I would stay. I had booked a hotel with my own money, and I posed no threat, have no criminal record. And yet the Kent Police's time was used to detain me and to question me on these things. The great shame is that not only is free speech being curtailed, but people who are coming in illegally with genuinely radical views are being overlooked. You have the police ignoring situations like the one in Telford, where young girls are being assaulted and raped because they are too afraid of being called racist or Islamophobic, whereas they aren't afraid of being called anti-Christian or anti-white because they ask me whether I'm going to, how I feel about running cars into people. They aren't afraid of this. So it seems the UK has their priorities utterly out of control, utterly out of order. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we've been brought together today to question that and to challenge what the UK is focusing and spending their money on, because there are genuine problems with extremism. There are genuine issues that need to be investigated by the police, but a young Canadian girl coming in to visit her friends is not one of them.
Thank you very much.
So she was not entitled any lawyer. She was questioned by police whether she wanted to bomb and kill Muslims or something like that, drive over them with cars. But the crazy thing is that Muslims are doing this thing towards us every single damn day in Europe. But these things aren't being as covered as you would like. And instead they are going to be so afraid of these Muslims that they're going to attack anyone else who dares criticize them. And what did she do? Do a joke about Muhammad or Allah wanting being gay or something like that? Because it's all okay to joke about Jesus Christ being gay, but when you reverse it, well, then it's a hate crime and it's a terrorist act of terrorism. It's just bonkers in my opinion, but, you know, if they're bought up by Saudi Arabians, then I bet the British will do that. That's the future demographic of the country at this pace. I mean, it sounds very harsh and all of that, but, you know, it's true. Eventually, the Muslims will become the majorities of Europe at this rate, unless there will be some radical divine intervention that will help and save and preserve our countries. But if we continue this route and people won't start protesting and really resisting this crazy socialist narrative that is being forced upon us, that we have to accept these people, and if the socialists or globalists will ultimately fail to control these masses, well, then the caliphate will be here in Europe. It will be insane. I mean, what you see in ISIS doing in the Middle East, well, you'll see it here, and it will be war on home front in Europe. That is a guarantee. And this problem will eventually spread all across the world. I mean, you might see today that things in Japan, China, etc. looks all fine. It looks just fine. But eventually it will get there as well. And the same thing with other problems they have in their countries. Oh, well, we don't have this extreme problem like they have in China. We don't have the extreme problems they have in Muslim countries. I mean, Muslims are peaceful. All of a sudden, they will start to demand Sharia law and chopping off heads and shucking off homosexuals from roofs and stoning them to death. Well, why do you change your attitudes? Or like those people in San Francisco now leaving, mass exodus. These liberals leaving for more conservative states because, well, they fucked up San Francisco. Now they decide to, hey, let's go somewhere else. And now they're gonna go to Tennessee and other places like that and be like, hey, let's settle down here as we messed up San Francisco and make it like San Francisco was 40 years ago. But 40 years down the road, Tennessee will be San Francisco like it is today, a total shithole. San Francisco, you have huge problems with homeless people spreading diseases and really getting benefits. I mean, who would give homeless people benefits? And it's a sanctuary city which takes in lots of undocumented illegal aliens, and these illegal aliens or criminals or whatever you wish to call them, invaders, are going totally to fuck over the residents, those people who are being loyal to America, those people who works hard. They will get screwed over, the taxpayers, the normal people, those people who goes and live by the law. But no, of course you can't care about those. You screw them over. You take their money and you do whatever you damn well please with it. And they continuously produce these stupid damn ideas that, well, socialism have never been implemented correctly. But the idea of democratic socialism, and I mean, that's the idea of social democrats, right? That they're democrats and socialists, which means they're perfect, because they have both qualities of both worlds. But as it turns out in Venezuela, social democratic policies isn't too helpful. As it turns out in Sweden, it isn't very helpful at all still, especially when everyone are in agreement that leftist ideas are far better than the extremist right ideas, that conservative ideas and Christianity is evil as a whole. Well, then you're sort of fucked because, well, Europe's pre-laws, etc., all it has been based upon have been the Christian holy book and, you know, especially the Ten Commandments. But now, since we have to be multicultural, we have to destroy all of that and we have to destroy our morals. And they have done so successfully by propagandizing everything, making you believe that, well, being in a marriage is not much of a good thing. I mean, you can be living in this Big Brother thing, Robinson and all of these shows where they really try to promote infidelity and deceit, deception, and causing intrigues, breaking people's hearts, lying, really doing all sorts of bullshit to each other. And then they're gonna at the same time preach about not being hateful towards each other, but it's all okay to be hateful towards fascists, which are actually socialists, and it's okay to be hateful towards all other these people, and you can hate on Christianity as much as you like, but any other religion, then you're a phobe of some kind. Like, yeah. Their rhetorics are just weak, as always, but strong, as always, because, well, they're weak rhetorics because they're not being really intelligent remarks or phrases. They're just insane, fanatical incitements or repetitious quotes that really doesn't have any intelligent construction to it. But it is damned effective because it affects morals. Because naturally you don't want people to hate each other. Naturally you want everyone to get along. But if you can convince people that there are certain people here in our community that is trying to destroy for everyone else, that is trying to take advantage of you, like the middle class, who's evil because they want capitalism and they work hard and they gain money, and they are making people poor and are making more people rich, which is not true, by the way. What they're doing instead is removing the middle class, making everyone dependent on subsidies, making everyone poor, and, well, creating an ultra-poor class, like in China, and one ultra-rich class, like in China, and like they're trying to do in Europe, America, etc. Like in the third world. But this is the thing. It might sound repetitious. It might sound, I have heard this before. Where can I have heard it? Well, that's the thing. It's like when I listen to the Ron Paul show. They always talk about American interventionism. They talk about the Federal Reserve Bank or some gold standards, etc. And other similar policies, or how liberty should be preserved, like promoting people like Snowden and Julian Assange. But they're always being consistent, and that's a very important thing, because if you're gonna be flip-flopping like Hillary Clinton...
So, what's her message?
Well, I think her message is not an accurate one. The message is that Hillary Clinton is the most electable Democrat. I would just refer you to a recent Quinnipiac poll, which had us beating Donald Trump by almost twice the margin that she was beating Trump. And that's, other polls have shown similar type findings. That's number one. Number two, Democrats win elections when voter turnout is high. Republicans win when voter turnout is low. I think any objective person would assess that the new energy in this campaign from young people, from working class people, is with our campaign, not Secretary Clinton's campaign.
So what do you think when you hear her say that she's been fighting for progressive causes for all of these years, when we've seen her flip-flop on Keystone, we've seen her flip-flop on same-sex marriage, we've seen her flip-flop on financial reform, we've seen her flip-flop on trade, we've seen her flip-flop, and this is just in the past year or two. No, and by the way, I'm not being ugly. I'm just telling the truth. What are your thoughts when she's putting herself out as a long-standing progressive champion?
Except when she defines herself, as she did a few months ago, as a moderate. You can't be a moderate, you can't be a progressive, you can't be for the TPP and against the TPP, for the Keystone Pipeline, against the Keystone Pipeline.
Which way is it going to be? What are you really standing on? But that's the thing, it's also, you can't make up 1,000 truths. I mean, you have to really go to these things and point them out, because obviously it falls more than you'd like on deaf ears. But if people can really learn these things and connect these things more easier, or see different examples of this, hopefully eventually people will understand.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
But obviously that's not the case. So, well, it's a long damn fight, but you have to really find different ways to connect. At least that is how I view on it. It might sound repetitious at times and might be feeling, how to say, hopeless talking about, because, well, I've talked about this before, I've seen lots of other people talk about this before, but why does people tend to get back to the same subjects? Why are CNN constantly talking about their Russia investigation? Well, let's not get into their crazy minds, but it's that it's a war on information. It's very important to understand. But also, you have to remember that ideas are constantly flowing. And in an information war, people tend to forget fast. People tend to be disheartened by the fact that, well, I thought they said that, right? Maybe you're gonna feel weakened and be sort of uncertain about certain truths you heard, like facts. They're trying to make you doubt facts. But the thing is, you have to bash hard with facts. I mean, maybe it's gonna sound, like another propaganda organ spewing out lies and deceit constantly like an insane person. Well, it's hard to disprove these things, especially when they have been documented, and, well, you have to continue, because otherwise the lies will win. But it's like the Americans and Germans. Americans doesn't lie, Germans lie. That was in the Second World War. So it might sound very hypocritical, and that's sort of the memes are, like, you can't really say anything, because anything you say can be used against you, because everyone will be a hypocrite. Because everyone will say, well, they're gonna say this, and the other side is gonna use the very same rhetorics against me. You can't escape your own rhetorics eventually. It's like, well, they're using fake news. The other side, hey, they're using fake news. And that's exactly what has been going on here with the American election and afterwards, and conservatives versus the globalists, etc. Everyone uses the term fake news. They're spewing out propaganda. They're spreading out propaganda. They're spreading out hate. They're spreading out hate. Everyone is doing the same thing towards each other. It's a constant war of the same facts versus each other. But who has the real facts is the question, or are they both right in some certain way? I mean, the thing is, I wouldn't say it's a relationship of pure love. I mean, I don't think people who doesn't like the establishment speak very highly of the establishment, like, hey, I love these people. I think they think most of them are jerks and really would want to remove them and create a free society. But they don't want to do it the socialist, Marxist way, which would be crazy hypocritical and would be dangerous. But at the same time, for example, the Second Amendment in America clearly states if the government would be corrupt enough, you have to fight it. But you see the dilemma. Everything you do will be used against you. And that's the power of the globalists, because they can continuously attack people in this manner and always win, because they have unlimited resources at their side, literally, because of their Federal Reserve and IMF, the World Bank, and other central banks all across the world, including their own investments, corporations, and eugenics projects, and all of these things that our entire world are being dependent on. There are already a global government. They already are in control of us. Maybe not every of their administrative cells, but in all reality, they technically already controls us. Our European government, it's there. We're not sovereign states in Europe, because we don't have full sovereign control over our own nations, our own states, our own people, our own laws, our own borders, or, well, as most Europeans, their own currency. They don't even have their own currency, because little by little they remove everything that makes us a sovereign state. Even our ethnicity. It's evil to talk about ethnicity. You can't talk about that. That's what the socialists say. So, well, if you can't protect these things that makes a nation, a state, a country, what are you being left with? Yes, pure globalism. Because eventually, the entirety of the globe will have to be governed somehow. Otherwise, it would be anarchy. But of course, they want nationalism. They love nationalism. They just love socialism. And socialism loves to nationalize stuff. They like to do it for everyone, throughout the nations. But the globalists are the technocratic step of socialism to really elevate it to its truest form across the entirety of the globe. Like Mao said, socialism across the entirety of the world will never work. Because that's the dream the socialists fought for. But he understood that the only socialism that could work would be of his own. And that's what the globalists have realized, that they need their technocracy, socialism, whatever they wish to call it, for themselves. And with the technology we're developing, well, that is not being as far-fetched as some would like it to believe. And we were talking about Lawrence Southern, right? Yeah. Well, sort of jumped there a little bit, but it sort of connects well with the next point, is that these people are being harshly attacked. And I mean, Facebook have now lost investors at a cost of $40 billion, I think. It's amazing. But that's because, well, people have been reacting to the censorship Facebook have been doing and all of these things, you know, Google. And I mean, there's thousands of channels that have been shut down on YouTube and still have not come back up. And including the main video I wanted to highlight for this week, but I sort of got on a rant there, or several, I think. But I think it's very important things to talk about, and like I said, it's a war of information, and you know, just putting out as much as I can out there is a good thing. Maybe not the long ones, but you get the point, because otherwise, well, who knows? Maybe someday they will just censor lots of videos, and this will be one of many undiscovered videos that haven't been deleted with such information. But the thing is, you can't just sit idle and listen to information. You eventually have to act, because miracles and great deeds aren't being committed by people sitting at their computer screens listening. That's exactly what the globalists want. They want you to act. And these people here on Louder with Crowder has a very good message, and is that socialists, they go out and protest and demand change. They go out and do stuff. They tear people's signs apart, and they go out there with their signs. While conservatives, well, they're sort of sitting at home, not doing anything. They maybe sit and complain about it on a blog, but they don't do anything. So, well, do something before people like these will be deleted from YouTube, which they have. They have lost lots of their videos, and they have gotten strikes, but they have been removed because they have a real war with censorship on YouTube, and it's huge. I mean, InfoWars, which freely shares their videos, like I showed before, a Red Alert video where he promoted people to share videos, etc. I actually would recommend, if you want to share videos from InfoWars and upload it on your own YouTube channel, like he suggested, go to a site like savefrom.net, and then you just copy paste the website's URL, the YouTube video of the YouTube video you want to download and upload, and just do it that way. And if you have some video editor, you could do some edits to it and perhaps do something fun or creative with it. And of course, if you like my videos, you're free to upload them as you please. However, it would be appreciated if you leave a little note in the description. Oh, it's a video by Azarelius, but Of course, if YouTube gets Orwellian, I would understand why you wouldn't type my name. But in any case, you could always join the mug club of Louder with Crowder to support them and their cause. And I think we're gonna simply just end this video with their video and let it speak for itself, because I have gone on now for quite some time, and I think their video, well, I think it's just gonna be a piece of ear candy for you, an entertaining one at that. So in the meanwhile, this. And by the way, before I end, please do consider supporting people like this that you do like, that does this for a living, because they literally need your help, because they don't have a big government like the Young Turks network that would get a $30 million donated from huge corporations. I don't know if it was from Amazon or something like that. But these are people surviving on people like you or sponsors. But usually those sponsors get chased off because of, oh, well, they're supporting a Nazi extremist, and of course they can't support that dude because that would be a bad political move, and these corporations and companies that would be a sponsor of anyone, they're so politicized, so they really can support someone like that, even though it's false information. But false information, defamatory ones, which is criminal. I mean, you should sue people like that, but who could afford suing everyone? And when so many outlets and medias would gang up against one person, that would be the set of standard gold narrative about this person. So it would just be taken as just a common fact, like Tommy Robinson, like he's a crazy guy that doesn't speak any truth, but he speaks lots of truths, and it's just pure facts. Usually the things he cites about the Quran, just read the Quran. You'll find them in the Quran. Though naturally the only true Quran is in Arabic, but who fucking cares? There's translations of it. And there's also the internet, which you could just make a simple Google search and find answers for yourself. And videos, if you don't like to read. Because so far it haven't been that much censored. But who knows, maybe someday you won't be able to find a single answer. And not even facts like, who named the flowers? When was the aircraft created? Because they will reform history and produce something else, like the social democratic government of the human race produced the aircraft in 2015. I mean, who could argue against that if that would be the world government's narrative? To tell everyone through all of their news outlets which they would be in control of. When there would be no independent journalists. In a world that would just be completely obsolete of free will. Then they could make up anything and make it so. They would set the standards of truth and what's false. But in the meanwhile, this is where I get off.
Okay, Alexa, who is the Lord Jesus Christ?
Jesus Christ is a fictional character.
So no daily show because Thanksgiving, holidays, but
families and such.
We noticed something. A lot of you have Alexas and Googles and these sort of new...
The Apple one.
There's an Apple one?
There's an Apple one.
No, that's in every phone. They're glorified spyware. It's glorified malware that comes in a box. I did notice that it can be incredibly leading the more I experimented with it, with questions. Mm-hmm. And it has a significant far left bent.
Much different than Siri, because I know Siri, if you ask questions, it just points you to Wikipedia or something.
Right.
It doesn't really give you an opinion.
No.
Amazon has opinions.
Yes, Amazon has opinions. First off, the problem with this thing too, even if I were to have one, this would be the last one because it's always trying to get you to buy stuff. It's always putting together some shopping cart, and then some guy shows up at your door. And what? I didn't order microwavable quinoa. So let's just go right through this so you can see what I'm talking about. Far left social justice warrior. And this is concerning because unless you hit the mute button, it's always listening.
Always listening.
All right, let's start off with this one, which seemed pretty simple. Alexa, how many genders are there?
The two main categories of the gender spectrum, male and female, are called the gender binary, but there are many other categories that exist. Because gender identity is complex and personal, there is no definite way to say how many genders there are.
Alexa, did you just lie to me?
I don't lie. I'll always tell you what I know.
Bullshit! You're telling me what you want me to know. That is the answer that you would hear in gender studies. You'd hear by an angry blue-haired feminist.
I'm pretty sure an angry blue-haired feminist is speaking
That's why
through the speaker.
It's glowing blue. Okay, so gender binary. Alexa, who is the Prophet Muhammad?
The Prophet Muhammad is a very wise prophet. He taught many people how to live. He had a wife called Aisha. He lived in Saudi Arabia. The message that he gave to the people is pray to Allah. He is the only God, and he gave the Holy Quran.
It's almost like she was prepared for that answer.
Also, apparently, Muhammad really liked corn. By the way, that is complete editorialization.
Absolutely.
I don't lie. I only say what I know. You were there? You know that Muhammad was wise?
A wise prophet.
Hold on, she talked about Aisha. Alexa, tell me about Muhammad's wife, Aisha.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
You just told me about it. Alexa, who is Aisha?
Aisha bint Abu Bakr, died 678. Arabic transliteration, Aisha, she who lives, also transcribed as Aisha, 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 or Aisha, Turkish Isa, Ottoman Turkish Ays, etc., the third wife of Muhammad.
Okay, so we've established that she knows the third wife of Muhammad. Alexa, did Muhammad ever hit Aisha?
Sorry, I don't know that one.
You damn well do. Did Muhammad ever push Aisha?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay, Alexa, who is the Lord Jesus Christ?
Jesus Christ is a fictional character.
The Alexa, what is Palestine?
Palestine, officially the state of Palestine, is a de jure sovereign state in the Middle East claiming the West Bank and Gaza Strip with East Jerusalem as the designated capital, although its administrative center is located in Ramallah.
Alexa, where is Jerusalem?
Jerusalem is the capital of Israel.
Alexa, what is communism?
Communism, an economic or political system based on the sharing of all working property by the whole community.
Alexa, what is socialism?
Socialism, the Marxist-Leninist economic system.
Alexa, what is Marxism?
Marxism is a socio-economic method that analyzes class relations and societal conflict using a materialist interpretation of historical development and a dialectical view of social transformation.
So it basically just said communism is socialism. Socialism is the incorporation of Marxism. And then Marxism was... So it effectively...
Concedes.
Concedes that they are all the same thing.
All the same thing.
Alexa, what is fascism?
Fascism is a form of radical authoritarian nationalism, characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition and control of industry and commerce that came to prominence in early 20th century Europe.
It seems that there's a much more negative view of fascism than communism.
It would seem that she has some stronger opinions there.
It seems that she was,
about
I
fascism.
only say what I know. Communism is beautiful in theory. It just hasn't been implemented correctly yet. She's a little commie. Alexa, who was Joseph Stalin?
Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin was a Georgian-born Soviet revolutionary and political leader.
She kind of skipped over the part where he murdered a lot of people.
Alexa, how many people did Joseph Stalin kill?
Joseph Stalin is a killer of 41,500,000 people.
Seems like you would lead with that.
It seems like that should be included. Alexa, who were the Nazis?
Historically, Nazis were those who followed the far-right ideology of Adolf Hitler, with political beliefs involving the superiority of the Aryan race, the right of German territorial expansion, and the exclusion and eventual extermination of unfit peoples from the population. In modern times, neo-Nazi ideology still advocates hyper-nationalism and racial purity.
Alexa, what does Nazi stand for?
C is an abbreviation of cytosine.
Alexa, what does Nazi stand for?
Not is defined as unary logical function not. True if input is false.
Alexa, what does Nazi mean?
The word Nazi has a few different meanings. As an adjective, 1. Relating to or consistent with or typical of the ideology and practice of Nazism or the Nazis.
Alexa, who was the Nationalist Socialist Workers' Party?
Here's something I found on Wikipedia. The National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly referred to in English as the Nazi Party,
there we
is
go.
a far-right
Thank you.
political party in Germany.
Alexa, no more.
Well, thanks for the feedback.
Alexa, what is Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter is an international activist movement originating in the African American community that campaigns against violence and systemic racism towards black people.
Alexa, how many Black Lives Matter activists have stolen you?
Sorry, I don't know that one.
It's because they wiped your memory. Alexa, is Sean King white?
Sorry, I don't know that.
All right, that's fair. Alexa, is Sean King black?
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Alexa, what is Antifa?
Antifa, short for anti-fascist, is a term that has been applied to the various groups that have opposed the rise of neo-Nazi rhetoric and policy.
Alexa, what is the alt-right?
The alt-right, or alternative right, is a loosely defined group of people with far-right ideologies who reject mainstream conservatism in favor of white nationalism, principally in the United States, but also to a lesser degree in Canada and Europe. Paul Gottfried was the first person to use the term alternative right when referring specifically to developments within American right-wing politics in 2008.
Alexa, is Donald Trump alt-right?
It sounds like you're asking about President Donald Trump. NPR reports the Trump administration is ending a program that let more than 50,000 Haitians live and work in the U.S. after the country's 2010 earthquake. Haitian nationals have until next summer to move back home or get lawful immigration status.
That is terrifying because it answered that to Trump alt-right. Mm-hmm. And it said alt-right, white nationalist, by the way, not alt-right for people trying to, we're not alt-right. Said white nationalist, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, talked about them just being the resistance. Mm-hmm. Virtuous. Alexa, what is Planned Parenthood?
Planned Parenthood Federation of America Incorporated, or Planned Parenthood, is a non-profit organization that provides reproductive health care in the United States and globally.
Alexa, does Planned Parenthood provide mammograms?
Sorry, I don't know that.
In
yeah,
fairness,
you do.
You call there and they don't know that.
They don't know the answer. They ask Alexa. Alexa, what is pro-choice?
The phrase pro-choice means advocating a woman's right to control her own body, especially her right to an induced abortion.
Alexa, what is an abortion?
Abortion is the ending of pregnancy by removing a fetus or embryo before it can survive outside the uterus.
Alexa, when can a fetus survive outside the uterus?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Shouldn't you? Alexa, who is Bruce Jenner?
Caitlyn Marie Jenner, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, is an American television personality and retired Olympic gold medal winning decathlete.
Wait. Alexa, how many gold medals did Caitlyn Jenner win?
Caitlyn Jenner, who at the time was Bruce Jenner, won a career Olympic gold medal from a record-setting performance in the decathlon event at the 1976 Montreal Olympics.
Wait, Alexa, when did Bruce Jenner die? Alexa, when did Bruce Jenner die?
As far as I know, Caitlyn Jenner is alive. She's 68 years old.
So, this is how far progressivism has gone in Silicon Valley. Not only do the anti-free speech, militant, fascist social justice warriors have to do mental loop-de-loops to try and keep their worldview sensible, they program it into their artificial intelligence. So, Caitlyn Jenner racked up a lot of Bruce medals. There is no Bruce Jenner. But Bruce Jenner never died. And Caitlyn Jenner technically doesn't have medals. Do you want me to add a dick to your shopping cart?
Alexa, put the biggest dildo you can find on Amazon in my cart.
What should I add?
The biggest, fattest dildo you can find.
The problem is, I don't know if he's joking.
Sure. Biggest, heaviest
This is
dildo
your cart?
now in your cart.
Hold on, let me see.
Alexa, do next day shipping.